In the early 2000s, this young man did what seemed impossible. He sold his local dialect to the world, and the world bought it. At the height of his fame, he had everything: classic albums, a loyal fanbase, a producer who believed in him, and a marriage that looked perfect from the outside. Then, something terrible happened. One of his songs turned his life into a courtroom, not because of what he said, but because of what people thought he meant. And the silence that followed didn't protect him. It created a monster. This is a sad story of 9ice, one of the biggest exports in Afrobeats. He had his song, fame, and unstoppable momentum. But at the peak of his career, terrible things began to happen. Public scandals, spiritual battles, and a series of unfortunate events that slowly ended his reign. In this documentary, I'm going to unveil the secrets behind the fall of 9ice, the one you've never had before. Brace yourself. My name is Prince Teepzy, and this is Fame and Fallout. To truly understand the secrets behind the fall of 9ice, the scandals, and the spiritual battles, we need to go back to the very beginning.
I'm back at you.
He was born Alexander Abolore Adigbola Akonde on January 17, 1919 in Ogbomoso, Oyo State, Nigeria. He was born into a large polygamous family. He grew up in a culturally rich but bustling environment where community, tradition, and storytelling played a central role. His father had 5 wives, and the family had 9 children. Life was never easy because in a home with such a big family, resources were stretched thin. Everyone had to struggle for attention, food, and survival. From a young age, 9ice learned what hardship meant. He attended Abule Okuta Primary School and CMS Grammar School in Lagos. He later enrolled in law program at Lagos State University, but dropped out to focus fully on his music career. He was not financially loaded. There was no shortcut, no rich sponsors, no easy life. If he wanted anything, he had to work for it. Music for him wasn't a luxury, it was an escape. His parents recognized his singing talent earlier on and supported his pursuit of music. He started writing songs at the age of 14, drawing inspiration from his environment and legendary Nigerian musicians such as Ebenezer Obey, King Sunny Ade, and many more. In Bariga, 9ice became known as a street boy with talent. He listened to music constantly. He loved singing, and more than that, he loved storytelling. He started mixing Yoruba language, street slang, life experiences into his lyrics. He performed anywhere he could, on the street, at small gatherings, at school events. Sometimes he performed for free, sometimes for nothing but applause. With little money, he recorded in small local studios. In the beginning, his sound wasn't perfect, but the message was powerful. He was telling real stories of struggles, of hunger, of dream. Slowly, people in Bariga began to notice this boy is different. Every day was a grind. Opportunities were rare, but quitting was never an option. Growing up poor in a large polygamous family already taught him endurance. He had seen all the struggles of life. Music was his chance to escape it. Still, the industry wasn't listening yet. Big producers ignored him. Record labels weren't interested in him. But destiny was quietly preparing his breakthrough. And soon, one man will hear his sound. One opportunity will change everything. But before this opportunity, it was tough for him. 9ice recorded demo after demo, burned them on CDs, walked across Lagos trying to share them. Producers barely listened to him. Some people laughed at him. Some said, "Your sound is too local." Some said, "Singing in Yoruba won't sell." And others said, "Nobody wants to listen to street music." And other people simply ignored him. Record labels were not interested in him. To them, he was just another poor boy chasing an impossible dream. There were moments he almost gave up, moments he thought of finding a normal job, moments he questioned if music was worth all the suffering. But something inside him refused to quit. He poured his frustration into music. Slowly, his name started moving in the underground music scene. Not in big places yet, but in the streets, small shows, local events, anywhere they would let him perform. People would stop to listen because his music felt real. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't copying foreign musicians. He was speaking Yoruba proverb. And that authenticity began to open small doors. One connection led to the other. One studio session led to another, until one day, his music reached the ears of a man that would change his life forever. A producer known for discovering raw talent and a man who believed in Nigeria's sound. That man is Cabasa.
Yeah, I'm back at you.
Back then, Cabasa was already a respected producer in Lagos. Young talents came to his studio every day. Some could sing, some could rap, most were forgettable. One day, a young man he knew from church told him, "There is someone that can sing very well. I want to bring him to you." That guy arrived first. He was handsome, he had good voice, and he sounded like popular R&B singer of that time. He sang the chorus of a song beautifully. Cabasa was impressed, but then the guy pointed behind him and said, "He is the one that wrote the song." A quiet young man stepped forward, and that young man was Nice. Cabasa asked him, "Sing the chorus for me." Nice opened his mouth and something strange happened. According to Cabasa, he didn't hear a sweet singing voice, but he heard something deeper. He heard words, he heard meaning, he heard proverbs, he had stories connecting together like puzzle. From that very moment, Cabasa knew this boy is different. Even back then, Nice spoke heavily in Yoruba proverb, the same style that would later define his career. His lyrics were in stardom. They were intelligent, cultural, and deep. At first, Cabasa actually thought the singer was the main talent, but slowly, he realized something shocking. The real gift wasn't the voice that sounded nice. The real gift was a boy who wrote the songs. In fact, Cabasa didn't like Nice's raw voice at first. He felt it was too rocky, too raw. He even tried to discourage him from singing. He told him, "Just leave singing. Learn music production instead, or just focus on songwriting." But Destiny had other plans.
Nice would not have even become a music artist. He wanted to learn music production. I was teaching Nice music production that I would tell him, I'm sure if he's hearing this, I would say, "Ogbeni, go and record people." After recording, I will still re-record the stuff.
One day, Cabasa gave Nice a writing job. A man had come from Italy and he needed a song. So Cabasa told Nice to write for him. Nice wrote the song. Cabasa even taught Nice how to record himself. When Cabasa returned the next day and listened to the recording, he was shocked. He didn't hear the Italian man anymore. All he could hear was Nice's voice, the lyrics, the melody, the soul. Cabasa turned and looked at Nice and he said to himself, "This voice is unique." It wasn't a polished voice, but it was powerful. It wasn't a sweet voice, but it was unforgettable. At that moment, everything changed. Cabasa realized if he didn't sign this boy, the industry would lose something special. And so, he brought Nice into his home. He made him stay close, guided him, and protected him. He even signed a formal agreement with his parents to make things official. And that was how Nice became part of Coded Tones. From that day forward, Nice wasn't just another street artist. He was now under a mentor who understood his gifts.
Yeah, I'm back at you.
After signing with Cabasa under Coded Tones, everything became more serious. No more random studio sessions, no more begging producers, Now there is a structure. Cabasa focused on sharpening 9ice's biggest weapon, his writing. Day after day, 9ice wrote songs filled with proverbs, street wisdom, real-life struggles, and deep meanings. Then one day, 9ice brought a song into the studio, a song he had written himself. The title was Little Money. The song spoke about hustle, about having dreams even when you don't have resources, about fighting to survive in Lagos. It was honest. When Cabasa heard it, he knew this was the right introduction for 9ice. In the year 2000, 9ice released the song officially. When Little Money dropped, radio stations started playing it. DJs picked it up. Music lovers began asking, who is this new guy? It wasn't yet a nationwide explosion, but it was a strong beginning. In 2007, 9ice released his first official album. That album was Certificate. Certificate had songs like Ganja Man, Same Ni, Little Money, and many more. The Certificate album made Little Money more famous again, and 9ice became a superstar. For the first time, 9ice was no longer underground. They started getting booked for shows. They started appearing on TV. Industry people started paying attention to him. Slowly but surely, his name was rising, and most importantly, the streets accepted him. But inside the Coded Tone studio, Cabasa and 9ice knew the truth. Little Money was just the introduction. They were working on something bigger, something deeper, something that would combine Yoruba culture, street energy, heavy reading, a song that would not just introduce 9ice, but dominate Nigeria.
Yeah, I'm back at you.
In the studio, Cabasa knew something important. Nigeria had had 9ice, but Nigeria had not felt him yet. So they went back to the roots, back to the Yoruba culture, back to heavy talking drums, back to deep proverbs. They wanted a sound that would hit the heart of the streets. That is when 9ice wrote a song inspired by traditional rhythm and street storytelling, a song called Gongo Aso. The moment the beat dropped, it felt different. Not like foreign hip-hop, not like regular Nigerian pop. It sounded local, it sounded raw, it sounded powerful. When Gongo Aso was released, something unbelievable happened. It didn't slowly grow, it exploded.
Gongo Aso was after a Thursday service in church. I came home, brought out the keyboard. I was hearing the sound in my head, put it down, bring. I think that album is one of the first albums that grew on people immediately dropped. Immediately.
Radio stations started playing it every hour. DJs made it their favorite club song. Bus drivers blasted it on full volume. Market women sang along. School children memorized the lyrics. From cities to villages, Nigeria was hooked. And amazingly, the song crossed over to other countries. The rhythm was impossible to ignore. The industry now respected him. The streets crowned him, and the media couldn't stop talking about him. In just a short time, 9ice had gone from struggling in Bariga to standing among Nigeria's biggest stars. But the success of Gongo Aso was only the beginning, because now it was time for his first full album. And nobody knew yet that it would become one of the most impactful albums in Nigerian music history.
Yeah, I'm back at you.
After the nationwide explosion of Gongo Aso, the single, the pressure was heavy. Everyone started asking, can he deliver a full album of hits? Or is just lucky to have Gongo Aso as a hit song? But inside the studio, 9ice and Cabasa focused on one thing, making a complete body of work that represented the streets, culture, and real Nigerian life. When Gongo Aso album finally dropped in 2008, it didn't just meet expectation, it destroyed them. Almost every major track became a hit. Gongo Aso, the cultural anthem. This was the engine of the album. It made 9ice a household name and proved that indigenous song could rule Nigeria. Then, the album had street credibility featuring Two-Face Idibia. This song connected the street with mainstream pop. It had heavy radio rotation, loved by hip-hop fans and pop fans. It showed 9ice could collaborate at the highest level, and it cemented him as a serious industry force, not just a street artist. In this song, he promised to bring the Grammy home to Nigeria.
I'm the cutest physically, don't doubt me, I go bring them Grammy.
But will he ever fulfill that promise? The album also had photocopy.
Photocopy, go easy, you can never be like me, this is my identity.
A lyrical masterpiece filled with proverb and deep meaning. It earned him massive respect for being a top-tier songwriter. And the album also had Party Rider.
I'm a party rider, call me, I be a fancy. Anywhere.
This brought fun into the album. It was club favorite, high energy performance at shows. It balanced serious song with enjoyment. It made his concert more exciting and widened his fan base. And with this album, 9ice officially entered the highest level of the music industry. But instead of slowing down, he pushed further, determined to prove that his success wasn't luck. But before then, 9ice made a decision that would later affect his music career. He got married to Toni Payne, his manager. It was a successful wedding. At first, everything looked great, but later something happened that would later become public and out of control. Before we continue, my name is Prince Theophilus. I'm a career coach and a music business consultant. I have helped a lot of artists and record labels grow. So if you're an artist or a record label executive looking for the best marketing strategy, branding, and understanding the music business, send me a DM with private session. Let's talk about it. Or click the link in the description right now to book a session with me. In this session, I will guide you so you can avoid common mistakes most artists and record label make. My session is not free, but the experience will change your life forever. Now, let's get back to the story.
Yeah, I'm back at you.
After the massive wave created by the Gongo Aso album, the entire music industry was watching closely. Many artists before 9ice had one great album, then faded away. But 9ice was determined to prove something. His success was not luck. His talent was not temporary. Together with Cabasa, he returned into the studio, not to repeat himself, but to grow. This time, the music was deeper, more matured, more rooted in culture and life experiences. He named the album Tradition, a statement, a declaration that he was building a legacy. And when the album dropped, Nigeria listened again. The album had hits like No Be Mistake,
No be mistake, take it by faith,
This became an instant nationwide hit. It proved that 9ice could dominate the mainstream while staying lyrical and original. The album also had Wedding Day,
On our wedding day,
a joyful cultural song celebrating love and marriage. It expanded 9ice fan base beyond youth into families and older audiences. Just like his debut project, the album had no weak songs. DJs played it from beginning to the end. Fans memorized it. Concert crowds sang almost every track word for word. The second album achieved something rare. Multiple hit songs again, massive radio dominance, cultural influence, commercial success, and industry respect. By now, 9ice had done what many artists couldn't. Two powerful albums back to back.
Yeah, I'm back at you.
When 9ice released the Tradition album, it was not a hit at first. It struggled a little bit, but then something happened that changed everything. What happened was in favor of 9ice because he recorded massive album sales and gained recognition. But the same event was destroying the career of another person, an artist who happened to be a close friend to 9ice, and that artist is Ruggedman. Ruggedman is a close friend to 9ice, not just a friend. He played a major role in the career of 9ice. He didn't only feature 9ice on his song at his early stage, he also connected him with the industry and introduced him to his wife at that time. Inside the Tradition album, there was a song that would quietly change everything. That song was titled Once Bitten Twice Shy. At first, it sounded nothing more than a deeply emotional record, the kind 9ice was known for. Slow tempo, painful honesty, and heavy words. The song told a story of heartbreak between a man and a woman and a close friend, a moment of betrayal that left permanent scars. 9ice was talking about walking in to see his girlfriend having sexual relationship with his best friend. And when fans heard the song, they assumed the best friend was Ruggedman. And at this time, 9ice and his wife were having issues. So, because of this issue, the public stood firm with the rumor. Nobody cared to confirm if it was true. Everyone accused Ruggedman of being a backstabber. The news spread like wildfire. Fans bought the album, listening carefully to the lyrics, and everyone had a different interpretation of the lyrics. Listeners began to connect the dots, the timing, the marriage, the friendship, and they concluded that Ruggedman was a bad friend. Before we knew it, it was on blog, on newspapers, radio presenters debated on it. Street conversation turned the lyrics into conclusion. Even though Ruggedman was not mentioned in the song, the public created their own narrative and ran with it. But while all this was happening, 9ice was gaining massive recognition. The rumors were helping 9ice sell millions of copies, and the rumor put his name on the lips of everyone. And this was kind of good for 9ice, but for Ruggedman, it was damaging his reputation in the music industry. But here is a real question. Is Ruggedman guilty of this accusation?
Yeah, I'm back at you.
Once Bitten Twice Shy entered the public space, it no longer belonged to the studio, it belonged to the street. And in 2009 to 2010, Nigerian entertainment blogs were just beginning to discover their power. A power that didn't need proof, only clicks. The interpretation spread fast. Blogs didn't say allegedly, they said sources claim. Radio presenters didn't accuse, they hinted. Fans didn't ask questions, they drew conclusions. Soon, the story felt settled in the public mind that 9ice had written a song about catching his wife with his close friend. The wife was Toni Payne, and the friend was Ruggedman, the same man who had introduced the couple. No evidence, no confirmation, but the story was too perfect to resist. Every replay of the song became an investigation. People listened not for emotion, but for proof. Lines were paused, lyrics were replayed. Every word was treated like a testimony. As the rumor grew, Ruggedman denied the allegation. Toni Payne, 9ice's wife, denied the allegation. Publicly, clearly, but one person remained silent, and that person was 9ice. And in the court of public opinion, silence is not neutral. Silence sounds like agreement. Silence sounds like strategy. Silence sounds like confirmation. And with every day that passed, the rumors spread wider. At this point, the issue was no longer about the song. It was about reputation. And the damage was uneven because while 9ice was selling records, another man was losing everything quietly. With the rumors everywhere, with the silence still in place, with reputation still burning, Ruggedman felt he had no choice left. If the truth wouldn't be spoken for him, he would fight for himself. By 2010, the rumor had gathered more strength. It wasn't fading. It wasn't slowing down. It was destroying reputations. And for Ruggedman, it became unbearable. Ruggedman did not go public first. He did not diss first. He called his friend 9ice. Not to fight, not to threaten 9ice, but to ask for one simple favor: clear this up. He was begging 9ice to do anything to clear his name, A press release, a sentence, a denial, anything, because the rumor wasn't just online gossip anymore. It was costing him his career. But instead of Nice to consider Ruggedman, he said he was too busy. He said everyone should defend themselves, that he didn't have time for explanations. That answer hits harder than the accusation, because at that moment, Ruggedman realized something painful. The silence was a choice. But unknown to him, Ruggedman recorded the phone conversation. He needed to clear his name to the public, but he did not release it immediately. He kept the recording as an evidence because he still hoped that the matter would be handled privately. Ruggedman's team reached out to Nice's team. A deadline was given, 1 week, 7 days to issue a clarification, 7 days to stop the bleeding, but nothing happened. After the deadline passed, Ruggedman did what he felt he had no choice to do. He released the recorded conversation, not as a revenge, but as self-defense. This is the audio of their conversation.
So the only favor I ask you as a friend, now make you just, even through your publicist, just say, look, I sang a song about maybe past experience or something, not about Toni Payne, not about Ruggedman. Leave them alone. Finish. That's the only favor I ask you, because you know why? Somebody they tell me, nice.
Wait,
so Jackie publicist.
I won't do that because I don't go to him and I don't get time.
Okay, so you prefer me people. Hold on, yeah.
Yeah.
You prefer me people to talk about me in that light and talk about Toni Payne like in that light?
Rugged. At this stage of my career, I don't pass that level.
Everybody.
I don't pass that.
Everybody don't pass that level.
That's something where I go to do like 2001 or 2099.
Mm.
So, I want to make you imagine or put yourself at the same that level. Me can't go and say somebody, release your album and sell your shit and sell your album and make your money.
The audio spread like wildfire. Radio stations played it. Blogs reposted it. Fans shared it everywhere. The same blog that once judged Ruggedman now had his side of the story. Some sympathized, some reconsidered, but the damage had already been done because reputation don't heal as fast as rumors. With a call now in public, there was no turning back. Music would now be used as weapon. This track would follow, and the industry will watch two artists tear each other apart.
Yeah, I'm back at you.
For Ruggedman, the damage had already been done. His reputation had been dragged. His name had been stained, and his career momentum had slowed to a crawl. So he did what artists do when interviews no longer work. He went to the studio, released a diss track aimed at Nice, and the song is titled Nice Ingrate.
When I say nice, you say ingrate. Nice, ingrate, nice, ingrate.
These were not subtle records. Ruggedman called Nice an ingrate. He said he made him who he was, and he should not bite the finger that fed him. In response to the diss track, Nice featured a rising rapper at that time called Seriki on the song Talk, I Am Listening, a diss track aimed at Ruggedman.
Talk, I am listening. Talk.
Ruggedman also released another diss track titled A Word Is Enough for Nice.
All I wanted was to clear my name off the dirty rumor. All you had to do was speak up, but you let it.
While the diss track trended, something else was happening quietly. Ruggedman's career did not recover. Brands stayed away from him. Promoters hesitated. Public perception had already settled. The diss track didn't undo the damage. They only documented it. This was no longer a music beef. It was a damage control after destruction. Music became a courtroom. Lyrics became affidavit. But by the time the evidence arrived, the verdict had already been passed. And the saddest part, even as the truth slowly emerged, the industry had moved on. Attention faded, and Ruggedman would later admit that they canceled me for something I didn't do. But here is the question. Will Nice and Ruggedman ever reconcile? Will they ever be friends again? After the storm of the accusations, after the media noise, after the song everyone linked to the controversy, Nice was still famous, but something important had shifted. The rise that once felt unstoppable was no longer smooth. Before the scandal, every song became a hit. Every show was packed. Every move was celebrated. But after the scandal, the excitement cooled. He still performed, he still had fans, but the magic was fading. New artists were entering the industry. The sound of Nigerian music was changing fast, and Nice was no longer at the center of it all. The fallout with Ruggedman didn't just end a friendship, it affected how people saw Nice. Some industry insiders became conscious, some distanced themselves quietly, and in the music industry, trust matters, and controversies damage trust. Opportunity that once come easily now come slowly.
Yeah, I'm back at you.
After the controversy with Ruggedman and the slowing momentum, Nice knew one thing: he had to fight back. Silence would bury him, only music could save him. So in 2011, he returned with a bold statement with an album titled Versus. The name alone told a story that this was Nice versus the new generation of artists. It featured artists like Tiwa Savage, Timaya, M.I., Banky W, and many more. Unlike his earlier cultural-heavy project, Versus was more modern, more commercial, more aggressive. He experimented with club song, pop influences, and faster beats. He wanted relevance again. He wanted radio dominance again. The album had strong track. It got airplay. It made the noise, but something was different. It didn't shake Nigeria like Gongo Aso or Tradition. Fans listened, but the excitement wasn't the same. Some people loved the new direction. Others said, this is not the Nice we fell in love with. The streets had moved on. The industry had changed. New stars were ruling the charts. Versus proved that Nice still had talent. It still had the hunger, but it also showed something painful. His peak era was going. He was no longer ahead of the wave. He was chasing it, still respected, still known, but no longer dominant. And realizing this, Nice made another move. Instead of running away from his roots, he returned to them fully, to culture, to depth, to Yoruba storytelling. And that decision gave birth to another album, an album he hoped will restore his glory.
Yeah, I'm back at you.
Later in 2011, Nice released another album. This time, he didn't chase trend. He went back to who he truly was. The album was titled Bashorunga. From the title to the sound, it was deeply cultured. Strong Yoruba reading, deep proverbs, heavy storytelling. This was the Nice Nigerians first fell in love with. Bashorunga felt like a spiritual successor of Gongo Aso. Fans who love old Nice appreciated it. Critics praised the depth. It showed maturity. It showed growth. Even with the quality, the impact wasn't the same. The Nigerian music scene had shifted. Afro pop stars were now ruling. Club music was dominating. Indigenous song was no longer the mainstream. So while Bashorunga was respected, it wasn't massively celebrated. This album made something clear. Nice was no longer the king of the moment. He was now a legend trying to hold relevance, but the spotlight had moved on. And after this final strong musical push, the decline became harder to fight, and soon health problems would begin. Spiritual struggles would start, and a shocking career decision would follow.
Yeah, I'm back at you.
After the release of Bashorunga, Nice had done everything musically to reclaim his throne. He had tried modern sound with Versus. He had returned to culture with Bashorunga, but just when he was pushing the hardest, his body began to betray him. Fans who attended the show began noticing something strange. The powerful rocky voice they loved was no longer consistent. Sometimes it sounded weak. Sometimes it cracked mid-performance. Sometimes he struggled to finish his song. At first, people thought he was just tired. He had overworked himself, but the problem didn't go away. It got worse. Behind the scene, Nice was dealing with serious vocal issue. Singing caused pain. Long studio sessions became impossible. Doctors advised him to rest, but to him, rest meant disappearing. And in the music industry, disappearance is dangerous. He kept performing even when it hurt, even when his voice wasn't strong. And each time, the damage became worse. And finally, music slowed down. For 9ice, this was heartbreaking. He had already survived the scandal. Now he was facing something even worse, losing the very tool that made him famous. Music wasn't just his career, it was his identity. Now, watching his voice fade felt like watching his life crumble. Frustrations turned into sadness turned into confusion, and he kept asking, why is everything happening after my peak? To him, this wasn't ordinary sickness, it felt spiritual, and that belief will soon lead him into something more intense. A chapter of prayers, traditional practices, and spiritual warfare.
Yeah, I'm back at you.
As his voice continued to fail and his grip on the music industry kept slipping, 9ice began to look beyond doctors and physical world. To him, too many things had gone wrong too fast. In his heart, this didn't feel like coincidence. It felt like a battle. 9ice started speaking openly about spiritual attacks. He believed enemies were fighting him behind the scene, that jealous people were using spiritual means to pull him down, that his destiny was being attacked. In interviews and conversation, he hinted that his voice problem wasn't ordinary sickness. His sudden career struggle weren't just bad luck. To him, unseen forces were working against his success. In fact, 9ice once said, the devil controls the music industry.
You can be passing message. That's why when you sing as an artist, watch what you say in words, because devil controls music.
Desperate for healing and answers, 9ice reportedly sought help from different directions: pastors and prayer houses, spiritual deliverance sessions, and traditional spiritual solutions. Like many Africans who strongly believe in spiritual realities, he wanted to fight on every front: physical, mental, spiritual. He prayed, he fasted, he searched for protection, he searched for restoration. In the middle of this struggle, 9ice made a decision that shocked many in Nigeria, a decision that would later be seen as the biggest mistake of his career.
Yeah, I'm back at you.
Just when fans expected 9ice to fully focus on rebuilding his music career, he shocked the nation. Instead of dropping a major comeback song, he announced something nobody saw coming. He was going into politics. At a time when his music momentum was already struggling, 9ice decided to step away completely into a different world. In 2015, 9ice declared his intention to run for office. He aimed to represent a constituency in Lagos State. Many people were surprised. Some supported him, others questioned the timing. His fans asked, why now? Why leaving music when your career needs rebuilding? But 9ice believed politics is another way to make impact. He believed he could use his fame to serve people.
I don't want to do music, but somehow, some way I
So
found
you got
myself.
into music by accident?
I would say that. Because it's not what I want to do. So now I think I've done my bit in music. I'm one of the few in my generation that have 7 albums. I don't think we can count up to 2 or 3 that have 7 albums. So I've done all that is there to do. So I want to do something different. I want to do what I want to do.
Suddenly, Nigerians saw a new version of 9ice, not on stage with microphone singing, but at rallies with microphone giving speeches. He moved around community, he spoke to voters, he promised change, and the media followed closely. A famous musician chasing political power was a big news. But the big problem is, politics is not like music. In music, talent can make you rise fast, but in politics, popularity is not enough. You need strong political structure, deep connection, and experience. And unfortunately, 9ice didn't have enough of those. Despite his fame and effort, the political journey didn't go as planned. While 9ice was busy with politics, the music industry didn't wait. New stars dominated the charts. New sound took over. Trends changed. The fans shifted their attention. By the time he tried to return fully into music, the gap had become even wider. The momentum he was already struggling to regain was now almost gone, and sadly, he lost the election. After politics, 9ice's relevance reduced even more. Fewer shows, less media attention, smaller impact with new releases. The superstar who once ruled Nigeria was now struggling to stay in the conversation. And just when we thought everything was over, 9ice released a new album in the year 2016, and that album was titled ID Cabasa. The album was not just an album, it was a tribute, an appreciation, and a honor.
It feels great, it feels wonderful, it feels unique because working with him has always been one of my best moments in life, so in my music career. So working with him again brings back old memory and good things to come.
He wanted to give his mentor his flowers while he's still alive. And one song stood out in that album, and that song was Living Thing.
As a living thing, I wanna be on top of things. I wanna be doing things.
After years without a hit, 9ice had a hit song again. The song exploded. It was played everywhere. But 9ice still owes someone an apology. Not just an apology, but a public apology.
Yeah, I'm back at you.
In January 2016, something unexpected happened. After years of silence, bitterness, and unresolved pain, 9ice finally spoke. At this time, the message was clear. For the first time since the controversy began, 9ice addressed the issue directly and publicly. He apologized to Ruggedman, not in song, not through hints, not through silence, but with words. He clarified that Once Bitten Twice Shy was not about Ruggedman.
That song was never about Toni Payne. I think 9ice at some point could cry. Like, from where to where?
It was not about Toni Payne. The rumor had been a misunderstanding, and allowing it to linger was wrong. He admitted that his silence had caused pain, and that was the apology Ruggedman had waited for years to hear. But here is the truth, the part most people do not know. The song Once Bitten Twice Shy was not written about 9ice's wife at that time. It was not written about his friend Ruggedman. Privately, people close to 9ice already knew the backstory. The lyrics was inspired by an earlier relationship years before his marriage, an old wound, an old memory, nothing more. By the time the apology came, the industry had changed. The moment had passed. Careers had already taken different paths. But for Ruggedman, the apology still mattered. Not because it restored everything, but because it finally told the truth. It confirmed what he had been saying all along, that he had been judged for something he didn't do. After the apology, 9ice continued releasing songs. He never fully quit music, but the response was different. Where his old song once dominated charts, the new ones struggled for attention, not because they were bad, but because the spotlight had shifted, the audience had changed, and the industry had evolved. The new generation didn't grow up with 9ice the way the older fans did. To them, he was a legend, not a current star. Even as his relevance reduced, one thing never disappeared: respect. Older fans still respected his classic. Younger artists still mention his influence. Music lovers still recognize his contribution to indigenous songs. Because without 9ice, Yoruba might never have gone mainstream the way it did. The story of 9ice teaches us one brutal lesson. The music industry doesn't wait for anyone. It celebrates you today and replaces you tomorrow. Fame is fast and falling is faster. Scandals can change perception overnight. Health can destroy momentum, and one wrong career move can end a reign. In the entertainment industry, timing is everything. If you love stories like this, you might also like to subscribe to our second channel, Fame and Fallout, for more amazing documentaries like this. Click here right now to subscribe, or click here to watch more Fame and Fallout stories. Thank you for watching.